We're live. Hi, Facebook world.
Woo-hoo.
Back again for another live interview on another incredibly activating, igniting, exciting, fun topic. Lots of topics this morning. But I'm here with one of my best friends, one of my favorite people in the world, especially during this amazing, incredible roller coaster slash portal slash time machine slash everything this year has been. Andrea has been so important to me in this year. And a lot of it comes from her wisdom as an astrologer, just like a self-study astrologer. So when I was putting this group together, I could not think of any better person that I would want to work with and co-create with, bringing this group to be our guidance in using this astrology language than Andrea Walker. So we met in nutrition school like 7 years ago. Andrea is also an incredible nutritionist and has a really cool online group with a huge following. And we can get into all of that in the later in the conversation. But that's just to give our viewers a little bit of background about how we know each other. And I am so excited I feel like I know you so well, but there's always more to learn about someone, especially when you meet, a handful of years into doing this work.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to start by asking you, Andrea, how did you get on the spiritual path?
Yeah.
In the first place? How did astrology come into your life? How do you work with all of the magic tools that we work with? And just start by introducing yourself in that way.
Oh, thank you, Hollis. And, I just think you're so amazing. And I'm just over the moon to get to do this fun work with you and just play in this great world that you're creating here. So, so amazing. It's so interesting when you asked me to do this because it's just been the air that I've breathed for, most of my adult life, 25 years now. If I really have to pinpoint it, I think there's a few places. I think I always, when I was younger, felt like, oh, I'm kind of different from other people. Like I just notice things differently. Just always had that. And always, that was not a comfortable thing a lot of the time, right? I just never really felt like I fit in. I had to kind of figure out how are these humans around me doing this? I got to figure it out and start doing that. And then I think the first step was that I went to architecture school. I have an architecture degree at Cornell University, from Cornell University. And that really was where, it might not sound like a connection, but it was a very expanding curriculum, kind of taking you out of your preconceptions, the design world, questioning, being creative, incredible people from around the world. And then I would say the next point on that journey was I was lucky enough to kind of by happenstance find myself after graduation from architecture school in Taos, New Mexico. And I don't know how many people have been to Taos, New Mexico, but it's probably one of the most woo places in the country on the planet.
I can't wait to go.
Yeah, I mean the streets are littered with woo practitioners in Taos, so you can't. And so pretty quickly, I was working on the earth ships there, if anybody knows what that is, the tire houses, and ended up spending 8 years there. Long journey, but around early on there, somehow into my hands fell a Parker's Astrology, which is like one of the intro cookbook astrology books that we all run across. And I was just fascinated. I was like, what is this? This is like the coolest thing ever. And I would spend hours kind of being like, okay, there's this, and then this, and then this, and I put this together here. But it was always just for myself. And since that time, just to fast forward, not take too much time, but it's kind of been there all along as something that's just been for my own nourishment. I have about 4 people that I follow their work who are really out there scholarly doing, putting out a ton of content, and I really respect their pathways. And then I always call it sort of the weather report, right? So I kind of know what's going on, and then I sort of do my own interpretation of that for myself. But I'm really excited to share more of that because I've been sort of telling everyone around me all those things for many years, whether they want to hear them or not. That's good.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it's come up in conversation between us, and then it came up again with Jessica in terms of astrology being the language. And Jessica said that it's going to be the language of our children for the future, which makes so much sense. So can you talk to that, speak to that, and like?
Yeah. And I would use different verbiage. I would say a language, but I really love that it came up. Her talk was amazing, you guys, if you haven't seen Jessica's talk on this page, because I always find in anything that I do, nutrition, or this kind of work, I find myself sort of the supreme diplomat, Libra moon. We'll get into that. But, I want to be so respectful to everyone's path. And what I will say about how I feel about this is that it's a language of symbols. It's very nerdy. I mean, it's for the spiritual nerds, honestly, because it's very mathematical, very historical. One of the people that I follow and that I study with likes to go back to sort of Greek times and look at the ancient philosophers and how they did things. And so it's kind of, to my mind, it is a language of symbols. And it is a place where, just like so many other places in our world around us, we can reflect and find meaning that has meaning for us, and we can tap into what others before us have observed. And I don't ever ascribe to the concept that, like, Jupiter is doing something to me or whatever. It's more just like, in this complex and magnificent clockwork of the universe that we are in, this mystery of being human, there are many places to look and see patterns and find meaning. For some people, it could be biology. For some people, it could be, cooking, or, there's so many places you can find meaning, walking in the woods. And this is a very codified, very structured language that many people have studied over time, where I believe you can view the clockwork, and from that you can derive meaning. So anyway, that's my thoughts about that. And one thing I was thinking about coming on here too, I want to be clear about is all of these things we're going to talk about today. I feel like they add to my worldview, but I also don't feel like they take away from anybody else's way of looking at things, in terms of, like, they're not religious in my mind. You can have whatever religion you want or none, and all of these things can still give you meaning. They can give you meaning if you're a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim or a pagan or, an atheist or whatever. That part doesn't really matter. This is a way for you, just like I sort of thought, what's the most simple way that I could get the concept across? And I think everyone's had the experience of, like, the wishbone from Turkey after Thanksgiving dinner. And who hasn't done that? It's no different. It's a way to sort of ask a question of the universe and receive meaning. This is just a little more complex way. So,
yeah, but it's so interesting on so many levels, because no matter what your knowledge is of how life on planet Earth came to be, in general, we do know that we were much more connected to nature and connected to the spirit world. I mean, we didn't have fire for a long time, so that's all people would see were the stars. And not to get too in depth and too, like, woo out there, but I truly believe that we incarnate here on Earth from wherever we are in the universe, wherever we came from, our divine spark from that source energy, and we bring the knowledge here to help us, just to help us unravel whatever our purpose is, whatever our path is. And I find astrology so fun. So it's just fun to use. Because it's so nature. It's just like herbalists use plants to ignite their world. We're going to get into, we have to have a whole nother podcast or another interview on
many,
but we're going to get into crystals and oracle and some other of these divinatory tools that are all just incredibly rich in their history.
I find them very nourishing, very rich in their history. And the other piece that I wanted to say that I think really gets to the heart of the matter is that these are tools really that reflect things that are going on inside of us. And they are tools that we use to cultivate acceptance about our own journey. So that we are up to the task in front of us, which is to meet each moment with equanimity, balance, with the understanding of choice. And I talk about this a lot in my nutrition work, of agency over our own path forward and radical responsibility about our next steps. And so understanding that we're creating in every moment, and all of these tools allow us to see parts of ourselves in the reflection and to find acceptance and self-love.
That's what it's done for me, and in huge part thanks to you, because I used to just Google astrology reports and get a little bit of information, but it's just worked out, and thank you so much for this. But when something is going on for me, I'll just call Andrea and literally check in, like, what's going on? Can you offer me any advice? Because I'm having these emotions. I'm having a really, like chaos, or like, or on the other side, I'm feeling really awesome right now. What's that all about? And Andrea always can tell me something that is directly related to how I'm feeling. And I'm a Cancer, so I'm super sensitive. Not that everyone needs to be using astrology, but I can tell you, just like you said, for self-responsibility, for self-care, just to have an idea of like why I might be extra sensitive, and to not start blaming myself and taking it all in and just thinking there's something wrong with me. Astrology has played a huge role in my life in terms of just, okay, it is what it is. I know for the next 2 or 3 days, it's going to be a little bit more intense. And then play with that on a more like, how can we use this to bring up, those situations are going to come up, and a fight happens between my partner and I, and I'm like, wow, this is all such good information. This is Mars, or this is, whatever.
Yeah. No, and I think it adds to the wonder of being alive. It's not just, beyond the acceptance piece, which is so comforting. It's also like, it starts to accelerate the noticing, like noticing around us the meaning that's coming at us all the time, this miracle of being human. And that's only going to accelerate. We'll talk about that in just a little bit here, but we're about to step into a period of time where that's going to accelerate. And having these kind of tools with you, to me, it's very nourishing. My whole life is about nourishment. Everything I do. And my program is speaking about nourishment on a body and soul level to a certain extent, focus more on the body, but also with the soul. And then this is also just another piece of that in my mind. It's nourishment. And what is nourishment? Nourishment is the raw materials that we need to create our forward motion, whether that's our body, our mind, our spirit. So it's just nourishment.
It is nourishment. And it's to be taken lightheartedly, and then it can be taken really seriously if you want to dive into it and use it as like a serious roadmap to what you can. I mean, I don't know all the specifics in terms of this, but when I found out the meaning of the South Node and the North Node and put that together for me, I was like, holy crap. And then my daughter's born in my South Node. So I was like, oh, whoa, she's going to be one of my best teachers of my life, So just like,
and just pause there for a second, Hollis, because it's not like you didn't already know that, right? You could just say, all of us know that our child is going to be one of our greatest teachers, like no question, right? Can I get an amen from the parents in the group? But at the same time, when you see that, it kind of like lifts a little burden, right? It kind of gives a little fresh air around that, like, oh, okay.
It did, and it gave me a little bit of specificity in the area of my life, which is relationships specifically, and communication, because it's Gemini, and that's something I've worked on a lot, and that's something she's apparently going to be like really good at.
And one thing I want to say about all of this too is, I'm sure we have all levels watching this. I'm sure we have some people who are way advanced beyond what I've done, and then we have people who are total beginners and everything in between. And so astrology, we're going to talk about a few things today, but astrology is one of those things that it is very complex and mathematical if you really get into it, but there's kind of something for everyone. So don't be overwhelmed if you hear if you take what resonates and leave the rest, as one of my great teachers likes to say. There are concepts that are available no matter what level you are, and then if it's something that resonates with you and you go deeper, then you're never done. Like, it's just an endlessly rich field because so many great minds have contributed to it. You could spend a lifetime and only scratch the surface.
Yeah. Well, on that note, do you want to, there is so much happening astrologically, and I found it's mainstream now because I'll just use my parents as the obvious example. Like, they know about the transit that's coming up on the 21st. They know that we're going to be able to.
Which is amazing, right?
It is. It's just like gives me so much excitement to hear my mom bring that up at dinner. I was like, yeah, we're gonna see the Christmas stars. Like, do you want to know what it is? She's like, yeah, it's a planets coming together. I was like, that is awesome that you know that.
And you know, this is where it all comes together for all of us, because who isn't interested in this? And I want to share a photograph. This is from this incredible photographer who lives in Taos, New Mexico, Gerant Smith. I never know how to say that name, Geraint. This is a picture he took yesterday at just after sunset, and see if you can see it without, there's all the reflections, right? But that is the moon, the new moon, and you can see the penumbra of the moon. So you can see the sliver of the new moon. Wow. And then right above that, there's Jupiter and Saturn. And if you get really close in this picture, I probably can't show it here, you can literally see 2 of Jupiter's moons.
Wow.
So this is last night in real time. And who's not interested in that, right? I mean, that is just amazing and so stunning. And here's another version of it where it's a little bit farther out, but how beautiful is this, right? So that's really what's happening. And I love seeing, we talk about it so much, but to see it, like, and if you're in a place that's clear, what you want to do is just watch after the sunset. So, and I sort of skipped ahead there, but that's because, the big thing that's happening, and we'll back up and talk about a couple other things, but yes, everyone's talking about it. It's the hottest topic in town. We have this grand conjunction coming up on Monday on solstice, and wow, it's making waves. And anyone who's sort of been tuned into this is kind of like, whoa, we're so excited.
I want to make one comment before you go and into more detail. But this group is called Surrender to Remember, and I won't go into all the details. I mean, that I'll keep offering information on why that's so important to me, and why I think a lot of people in here are going to relate to that as we go on, and especially on a deeper and deeper level. But my dad said to me yesterday, like, why is this happening when I'm alive? And I just broke out, and like, I almost started crying, and I was like, it's because you chose it. And he goes, and he just stopped. And it's making people think like this. Like, heck yeah, like, we did choose this. We chose to be here during this time. And you may or may not believe that. It's really not, beside the point. But I do believe that. And I do believe that we came in at this time, at this very powerful time to be here. It's going to be an exciting ride for the next 20 years. And I'll let you take it from there.
Well, I just have to laugh because one of the things I tell my children, I have 2 daughters who are 10 and 13. And every once in a while, when they get really annoyed with me, I say, it's not my problem. You chose me, Mm-hmm. They hate it when I say that. But yes, we chose to be here to do this beautiful work, and how marvelous is that? And if you're hearing our voices, then we're connected, and we're all connected, all of us. And it's a beautiful time. It's a beautiful time to be here. You may be saying, what is she talking about? We just came here 2020, but that's it, right? And that's part of what this is about. And it bears, a kind of reflection on how we entered this year, which was this also massively major, slower planet conjunction of Saturn and Pluto in January. And it was right around January, right around, that 20th, 21st also. And this was a big deal. This was the sort of bell that began all of the things we've been through this year. And it's like bookends, because here we are in December, and those who've been following this have kind of looked at 2020. Literally, those who've been studying this have been looking at 2020 for like a decade or more, saying, what the heck is going to happen in 2020? Because that conjunction that happened in January, Saturn Pluto, that the last time we had that was around 9/11. And the one that we're having in December is also a once every 20 year, or the one we're having on Monday. So, it's been known that this year would be a kind of cracking open, a kind of, but nobody knew what, nobody could even imagine.
Well, just to say a comment about that is like, like, just like we mentioned before, it's a guide map. I mean, it's not like you can say the government's going to crumble or whatever, or so-and-so is going to get elected. It's just like, yeah, the energy is going to be intense in this.
Yeah. And some of those that I follow who have been scholars of this at a high level can get more nuanced, but even they are not, they're saying, yeah, of course we have no idea what that's going to look like. So that I think it brings so much meaning to look at that Saturn Pluto in January, just in sort of general terms. Saturn structures sort of the structure of things, and Pluto, the cathartic, destructive, death, rebirth, things coming up from below the earth, explosive. And so we have structures being exploded. We have, deep catharsis of undercurrents that have been percolating under the surface for millennia coming out to be processed. And we've seen that, right? We've seen that for sure through a variety of means. And then just to fast forward to what's happening on Monday, we have now this completely, like, you can just feel this lighter, brighter energy of like, wow, we have done a lot of work this year. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit when we move to the crystal piece, because we have all done so much work this year, whether you know it or not. And in fact, I just want to pause for a moment and send my love out to every single human watching this and say that I see you and I see the work that you've done this year. That I feel always like that's part of why I'm here always, also, is to recognize that in those that I connect with and in myself. And it's been such a gift, and it's been hard all at the same time, right? And now we're at this kind of a little bit of, I would say, the treasure. We're coming up to the treasure. And so we have Jupiter and Saturn coming together. And here's the key pieces to know, and this is something to understand. You can understand whether you're new to this or not. That particular coming together, it's actually closer. So I wanted to show that picture. It's closer. They come together every 20 years. So you can think there's these 20-year segments. It's actually closer than it's been for like 800 years or something. There's been a lot of talk, like it's just like it comes together, but it's particularly close. And then the other piece that's really nice to know about is that this conjunction, this coming together, conjunction, the word conjunction means coming together, that has happened every 20 years, but it stays in what we're going to talk about what this is too. I realize as I talk, sort of the explanation that needs to go with all of this, but the signs come in elements. We have earth signs, water signs, air signs, and fire signs, and they have their own particular characteristics. And so this conjunction stays in a particular element for 200 years. And so it has been in earth signs for 200 years, with the exception of 1981, it dipped into an air sign and back out again for the next one. But now we're solidly there. So we have on Monday, we are stepping into a new period of 200 years in the air signs with this conjunction. So it really is a big deal. That's kind of just what I want to get to. It's like, it really is a big deal. This isn't just the 20-year interval, it's the 200-year interval. And that's really a beautiful thing to land on.
Can you share just a couple points about the general difference in energy of what earth signs versus an air sign might feel like?
Yeah, and earth is structure and materializing. And think about the last 200 years. There's been so much building, like literally building on the earth, right? Like, industrial revolution, all of that. And then air, it's so interesting that dipping in 1981, think about the advent of the computer age, the first dawning of the internet, some of these things coming out, like how fascinating, the first dawning of globalization. And so Aquarius is so humanitarian. Air is very like more in the mind, intellectual, how we perceive things, the humanitarian aspect, the globalization aspect, where that is, the way the internet has transformed our life and where that will go, the world of ideas, the world of ideas. And so our ideas will have so much more power in this next era. They already have, of course, but it's going to become even more and more. And so it's so glib to talk about manifesting. We all love to talk about manifesting, but it truly is a great time on Monday to kind of, leading up to and during and beyond to really sink into what is it that you're calling forth, because the time period between the idea that you have for something and its appearance in your life is, and I know we've all seen this, right? It's shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter.
It is, and just to jump back a little bit, and maybe you can speak to this too. Like, I know that so this transit that you just talked about is a 20-year one, but there's all kinds of transits. Like, we all know of Mercury retrograde, which happens a few times a year. But at the beginning of these transits, right, it's kind of a time of reflection. And I did my 20-year reflection, and basically I was 17 years old and looked at what was going on in my life. And that certainly set the tone for the last 20 years. It was chaos. I was chaos. I was rebellious. I was no rules don't apply to me. And that's absolutely set the tone for those 20 years. And I'm not saying that it should have been any different. It was absolutely, but it was so interesting to look back at exactly where I was and how it took me on that.
And I would invite everyone to look back 20 years ago and see if there is any kind of theme that was happening then that then persisted over. And I would agree, very similar. And so that is what we're looking at right now. That's why it is so powerful to put some thought into that and think about what do you want the next 20 years to look like? How are you stepping into that time? And Saturn is kind of a container. It's a structure. It's and it's actually so much more mystical than we give it credit for. There is a mystical quality to our ability to even be embodied and to have structure, that is really something so beautiful. And then Jupiter is this expansion, ideas and philosophies and what's possible. And so when you put them together, we're really bringing our notion of what's possible into reality, into our physical being, into our lived experience, the container of our lived experience. So it's
I'm getting goosebumps because I might even cry. I'm like, we're literally setting the container for this community, Surrender to Remember, on the 21st, which is just a safe space for people to come and do this work. And in terms of air, like, this is also pretty mainstream for those who are attuned to this, but telepathic communication is going to get a lot stronger. Our intuition is going to grow. We talked to Jessica the other day. I mean, mediumship and channeling, these are going to be kind of normal ways we communicate. And to set a container and have boundaries around that, and to set intentions, like, what do you want your life to look like in the next 2, 3, 10, 20 years?
Yeah. And I like what you said about intuition. We are all, I believe, intuitive on some level. We just need to recognize it, pay attention to it. Everybody knows that sort of like, the gut feeling, or butterflies in the stomach, or I just sort of knew that, or you have a feeling about someone or about something. That's intuition. And it grows when you focus on it. And it grows when you use these tools that Hollis is providing to us. And I just want to give a plug for what you're doing, Hollis, because it's so awesome. And I'm so excited to do every single thing. And you're launching on Monday, and there's kind of like an amazing event every day, I think, for like 10 days or something. I don't know. You can talk more about that.
It's going to be just a taste of all the tools that we use. It's like, this is what I do for my personal development. This is all the people in this community are certainly soul seekers. And by that, I mean, asking questions. Why am I here? What's my purpose? Why am I here when this thing is happening in the sky that hasn't happened for 200 years?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, why did I choose to be here during 2020? So yeah, the retreat is just a little glimpse into practical and mystical tools that we can use to nourish ourselves. Going back to the nourishment piece, like it's all about taking care of ourselves. And on the Aquarian energy, I'm not an expert, but I do hear this theme of that Aquarians are very independent, but know how to be in community and collaborative. So we're
100%.
And that is just so the lessons that I had to learn this year, and so many of us did. We can't be dependent on external things. We have to be dependent on our internal environment for things like just feeling safety and just emotional comfort. And from that, we can go into creativity and manifestation and creating the life of our dreams. But if we are in chaos inside and aren't sovereign, are so dependent on external things, it's a little bit more difficult of a path.
Yeah, I would say that's a beautiful description, sovereignty in community. And I do see that as we step into this new phase, this new chapter, that things like working in community will be so important. And, you know, none of these things are necessarily good or bad. They're neutral, right? So it's up to us where we want to take it. And so you can see the shadow side of that, perhaps sort of the globalization, maybe like sort of the internet, you know, the whole thing we all struggle with, like screens taking over our lives and internet being so dominant in our lives. So it's up to us to create the path forward that is nourishing, supportive, positive, and the higher octaves, I believe, are a much more humanitarian outlook, much more understanding our connectedness, working together to up-level all of us, using technology like the internet and all of the other things that go with it to create more possibilities for connection and creative growth for every human on the planet.
Yeah.
Well,
on that note, I was like thinking, how do I tie this into crystals? Well, let's just go right into it.
Well, actually, and I have two more little things to say about that, and then because I have the connection. So one thing I wanted to mention was that we also have, as part of this, Saturn, which is a slower moving planet, not the slowest, but it changes signs about every 3 years. And yesterday, I don't think about how, if you felt anything change for you yesterday. Usually it's, you know, obviously something you're not going to be like, but sometimes it moved from Capricorn to Aquarius yesterday in the sort of lead up to this, because both of these planets have to move out of Capricorn and into Aquarius, and they're actually conjuncting right at the very beginning of Aquarius. So so exciting. So Saturn, the last 3 years in Capricorn has been really tearing, you know, sort of evaluating, tearing down, building up structures, you know, that kind of structures on all levels. And so it's been a heavier kind of influence. And then what's really interesting, we'll talk more about this with all the little ins and outs. You don't need to know this, but Saturn is the ruler of both Capricorn and Aquarius in the traditional sense. And so it's so interesting that it's moving from one sign it's very comfortable in to another one, but very different expression of the energy. So I'm so excited to see how that feels, and it should feel lighter for everyone. And then also we have Jupiter moving out of Capricorn, and Jupiter is in its fall in Capricorn, which means it's not very comfortable. It means that the house of Capricorn is not a natural house for Jupiter. And it makes sense if you think of Capricorn being a sort of Saturnian restriction building, and Jupiter wanting to expand and be like, oh, I feel so constricted here. And so Jupiter has been a little uncomfortable the last year. And some of the expansion that we've been feeling from Jupiter has been to do with things like the pandemic. Like, again, nothing is good or bad. It's neutral. So there's been this series of Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions this year that every time we've had one, there's been a spike in the pandemic. So this expansion, Jupiter not being comfortable, but now Jupiter is doing something, what it's called picking up dignity by moving into Aquarius. And so it's going to be so much happier there. And we're all just going to be like, yeah. So it's going to be just so happy. It's going to be back to its Jupiterian, benevolent, blessing self, just like, Jupiter is going to be like, I can breathe again. Of course, Jupiter's not really doing that. It's me saying that. But just to give you a sense of the energy is just going to lighten so much for all of us. There's kind of this feeling of like, looks like we made it, that kind of just, yeah. Oh, and we need that right now, right?
I went to the well, you've experienced the magical breath work that I do and it was so powerful last night. And so many people, the word clarity came up for so many people after their experience, and I certainly got a lot of clarity from my session.
Yeah, clarity is actually a big theme for December. Clarity, and it might happen in a that's another one of my great teachers, Lee Harris, has spoken about that. Like the energy of December is going to be this clarity, and it might even be this clarity of like, oh my God, this thing I thought I was totally supposed to be doing, like I'm not, or like, oh, I see what I am supposed to be doing, like sort of a. So
I've had a lot of experiences like that already. This month.
So I have a great way to shift into crystals around this conversation. Should I do that?
Absolutely.
I have
my crystals behind me, but my head's blocking.
Yeah. I love all of these things as like, first, my interest in crystals has really just been first because they're beautiful and I love beautiful things. Yeah. And so I've had friends who are really into them. I have a very dear friend who's very into them and sort of amplified that interest. And then now I just kind of, the thing with crystals is like you kind of can't stop once you start because you just want more because they're so beautiful. And then bringing the energy of that in, again, it's a way to kind of tune into something that is really in yourself and to bring it out. And so I actually went yesterday to get my tires fixed on my car, and I visited one of my favorite shops where you're able to procure some of these beautiful things. And I had to, I actually had in mind what I wanted to get. And at the same time, I found, and I have also like all these amazing decks of oracle cards. You can never have too many. And I said, I should get another one for these talks we're going to do. So I got this beautiful deck of cards. And then I got home and immediately started thinking about, okay, what is sort of the meaning of this, what I want to talk about. And of course, long story short, ended up pulling the card out of the deck that corresponded to the crystal I got. So that's like what I did. Yes, I'm supposed to talk about this. And, that sort of thing is the synchronicities that we have to start paying attention to. Like, it's not an accident. It's not an accident.
All of these things, astrology, crystals, tarot, oracles, these are things everyone can use. Like, I guess I want to say that because I had a real hesitation when I started this work, and it was in my like late teens, early 20s when I bought my first oracle deck, Mermaids and Dolphins, sitting right behind me by Dorian Virtue. And I thought I resisted for a long time because I thought I needed to like be an expert for some reason. And I'm just so excited to talk about all of this stuff because this is literally things you can start doing to learn how to trust your intuition, to notice synchronicities. This is a tool that our guides can use to communicate with us, and we can use to communicate with them. Like, I just listened to a podcast this morning about a guy he's an herbalist, but he was saying like synchronistic events brought the same plant he had never heard of into his life 3 times in a day. And I'm just like, yes, of course we have to pay attention to that stuff. And so the more things we're using and really thinking about intentionally, it builds our intuitive muscle. So yeah, tell me about.
Oh, I love that. Builds our intuitive muscle. So the one I want to share is actually a perfect one for us to focus on. And I also want to just say, you've said this before, Hollis, you don't actually need to own this crystal that I'm going to talk about to benefit from it. You can find a picture of it online. You can read about it, but the one I'm going to talk about is one that's actually personally significant to me. I kind of feel like it's my personal crystal, if I had to pick one, but it's also one that is really appropriate for this time we're going into, and that is the Smoky Quartz. And I have 2 versions of the Smoky Quartz. This is the one I got yesterday, and it's almost hard to see without. It's nice if you can sort of look through it to the light.
That's beautiful. And this is the one that you gave me. And it's
and that's a lighter one. And it's still a Smoky Quartz, but much lighter. And then here's another version a sort of dark, chunky one.
Wow, that's pretty.
Yeah. And
That's
this one, I wish you could see this one looking through it, but it's really hard. You know, the light is kind of in front of me. But this one, it glows with these, you know, these kind of, I wonder if I can take a picture of it and show you guys. This is the photographer side. Oh yeah, this is.
Oh, you can see it.
Show you.
Even with your phone behind it, you could see like.
So here's kind of also like what it looks like to look through it. So it's really a beautiful piece and it fits comfortably in your hand. So this is what I learned. Okay, so then this is the one that when I sat down, look what card I pulled out of this new deck, the Smoky Quartz. Out of this, you know, stack of cards, I pulled out Smoky Quartz. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. It's just like, you got to be kidding me. Like, the universe has a sense of humor, right? And it's a beautiful thing because I learned some things. I knew that Smoky Quartz was very grounding. I knew that it was nourishing and nurturing, which is kind of a role that I always feel is aligned with my role here in the world, and also a role that's good for me. But what I didn't know, and what's really cool to talk about right now, is that it actually, because it is, you see, it's kind of like a shade, right? It's kind of like, the smokiness. This offers, it's in on this card called Heavenly Mercy. It's called Mercy. It's the Mercy crystal, because what's going to happen is we're going to, and for some of us this has already been going on, our journeys are so accelerated. Our journeys of consciousness, our spiritual journeys, our journeys of just, you know, all these kind of realizations, it's so accelerated. That light of awareness is so accelerated that it can really wear you out. It can kind of be too much. You have to pace yourself because it takes a lot of energy to process all that. And so this is kind of like when you're in the hot sun and you need to take a break in a shady spot, and it feels so nice when you step into the shade. This is like a shade. This is like a place where you can rest, where your soul can rest in the shade from that bright light. So as someone who's so interested in nourishment and nurturing and in making sure that everyone has what they need to feel good on their journey, this seems like really appropriate right now. And along with that is that what's mentioned on this card is that associated with this is Archangel Uriel, which is the Archangel of Wisdom. And I think it takes, which I also very much resonate with, as you know, and it takes wisdom to know when to rest. So that's what I'll say about that.
Well, and then also I want to add the piece about integration. If we don't slow down, if we don't slow down and literally allow our bodies to rest, allow our minds to rest, allow our emotions to be felt and to rest, all this work we're doing.
Oh no, she froze. Let me see if we're frozen on here. I can keep talking if so. Hi everybody. Is Hollis frozen? I think she is. Hollis, I hope you come back. All right. I'll just keep going. All right, hopefully Hollis will come back. I'll just finish up. If not, I think we're really close to the end anyway. I was just going to mention one more thing for all of you, which is, oh, Hollis. I should wait till she comes back though. We might have to come back on. We'll just see if she's gonna connect here. Oh, so sorry, you guys. Thanks for watching. If you're watching, I think we'll maybe try to reconnect here. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you so much. It's been so nice to connect to you. And I will just say one thing in case you don't manage to find the next feed that will start probably here, which is that the great news is, and I'm so excited about it. Thank you so much. It's been so nice to connect to you. And I will just say one thing in case you don't manage to find the next feed.
Are we back? Am I back?
You're back.
Okay.
I was going to just round us out and start a new thread if you didn't come back.
No, let's continue the conversation. That's so cool. That's what we're dealing with in Mexico. Sometimes the internet likes to take a break. Totally,
right? Well, I was just going to say I had actually, I had one more crystal to share. I actually had two more. What did I do with that other one? I had some new ones, and then I'm not sure what. Oh, I know what I did with them here. That's so funny because I got them, and then of course I put them in. Oh, are they in here? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So the next one that I drew yesterday to talk about as well, and I cannot believe how aligned it is with this, is nourishment, which is what we talk about all the time. And nourishment, carnelian, which is the root, right? How we're rooted down, how we're connected to the earth, taking a deep breath and feeling into our body. And this is something I work with all the time. This is my passion. This is my life, is this, radiant health, radiant life. We have to feel good in our bodies. Our bodies are, our anchor here on earth for us to have this experience. We are spirit beings having a human experience, and the state and vibration of our bodies is crucial to the quality of that experience. And so if you want to have the highest level of experience as a spirit being here on this earth, you have to take care of your body. You have to give yourself nourishment. And this also speaks to nourishment just on, not on just the body level, but also on the mind and the soul level. And so I do happen to have a beautiful carnelian here to go with that.
That's gorgeous, Andrea.
So carnelian is kind of, that sort of root chakra connecting to the earth. And I was so happy when I pulled that because I was like, oh, I have a carnelian.
Well, this also speaks to that you are tapping into the energy of the flow of just this community, and where this is not like I created this, like this was totally channeled too. The universe, guides, whatever source energy, whatever you want to refer to it as. I'll be giving the first coaching workshop on getting grounded in your body, and then the entire month of 2021 is focusing on that. And I mean, it's such a simple thing. And self-care, I just used to roll my eyes at that, like said over and over and over, well, you're not going to make any, when I was going through my health problems in my 20s, it was like, you're not going to make any progress unless you don't start taking care of it. I'm like, what does that even mean? Well, it means a ton of things, and it's always shifting and it's always changing. And I think it's a lifelong process because there is so much transition happening, and especially in highly energetic times like this, where we're moving so fast. You're right. What you're teaching and what you built your whole program around in terms of nourishing your body is so important. So it's so important.
It's so important. And so I love that those two came up, right? Sort of taking rest and nourishment on your journey. Like, let's keep that in mind for the next 20 years, really. As we move into this, this is going to be an accelerated time for those that are paying attention. And then one last crystal for today. And normally I probably just do like maybe one, but for today, it's nice. And that is something to do with this energy of Aquarius that we're bringing in. And so there's a few stones that can help to connect with that. I happen to have sodalite. It's bluish.
I love sodalite.
My nails sort of look funny there with their gold, but there's the bluish sodalite. Blue apatite. I don't have a blue apatite, but that's a beautiful version as well. And so the blue might make you realize, especially that sort of beautiful, deeper blue. So we're really talking about kind of throat and third eye. So we're talking about really being able to use your intuition and speak your truth. Use your intuition and speak your truth. So that's this energy that we're moving into. So sodalite, apatite, there's a few others, you can look it up. But using your intuition and speaking your truth. That's the era that we're moving into.
I love that. And it's been a common theme in so many conversations.
I know, that's what you're doing here.
Yeah. That's my wisdom. Wisdom helps me communicate. It helps me express myself, and I love it. What I just had a question, and it's, do you want to draw any more cards?
I was going to draw one card for you, Hollis, for your container. I was going to draw actually a sacred geometry card to honor the setting of the container, surrender to remember. Would you like that?
That would be amazing. Yes.
It's so much fun. Everyone's just seeing like what we do when we hang out. Hangout session. It's just like a girl session.
Oh, but it's so meaningful and it's just so helpful. I mean, come on, if we can't bring humor and fun to it, it just, with all the stuff we're going through in terms of self-development, transformation, this is just the fun part.
Totally is. So Hollis's container, and I haven't looked at these. I'm drawing it right on camera.
Hollis and team.
Hollis and team. You are the glorious. Oh, this is so beautiful. And it kind of goes with this gentle energy that we've been talking about today. Allowance.
Oh, wow.
How beautiful that image is. I'll read the little thing on here. I won't do the whole like long book entry, but the frequency of allowance invites us to be open to whatever comes our way without judgment, without opinion, without fear, and without resistance. When we allow, the universe becomes our partner in the wondrous dance of existence and expansion.
Yeah, that really speaks to the whole energy of the era we're going into, because it's going to, like you said, it's going to be happening faster. Change, we're all to some degree resistant to change, because why not? It's just comfortable to be comfortable. And the more, allowance has been a word I've been using a lot lately. Allowance, surrender, trust.
Surrender is an allowance. It's allowing. And I'll share a concept that I got from Lee Harris. I always want to give credit where credit is due. The amazing Lee Harris, in his talking about abundance, that the true abundance is not how traditionally we have talked about it in modern culture. The true abundance is surrender. The true abundance is surrendering and understanding that whatever experience you're having in that moment is riches beyond compare, because it is the opportunity for your soul to take its next step. And there is nothing more valuable than that.
That's beautiful. It's so beautiful, and it's so true. And that also came up in the last conversation we had on here. I had in here with Jessica. So this is, what a beautiful conversation, Andrea. Where can people find you? I'm going to put your links in the but just let people know.
People are welcome to just friend me on my personal page. I love that. That's totally great. And I always talk about what I'm doing. And then I also have a group page called Reclaim Your Energy. I can give you the link for that, where we talk about a lot of different kinds of nourishment. And I also do a retreat week in there once every 2 weeks. That's great for tuning up your physical energy and your mental energy. That's probably, and then also there's Instagram, Andrea J. Walker Radiance. That's a good place too. So yeah, you can just message me on Facebook if you want to be like, where can I find you again? And I'll shoot you those links. So
yeah, Andrea does these amazing virtual retreats based more around the physical health, but of course it's all part of it, mental, physical, emotional. But she does these amazing retreats in part of her group, and I highly suggest that you get into that group if you want to give your body and
dog.
And
I think Jake is telling us time is up.
Well, and you can also, since if you haven't joined Surrender to Remember, if you're watching this on one of my other platforms, get into Surrender to Remember. It is a private group, but Andrea is going to be giving astrology reports. The first one so she's going to be giving us like a 2 week ahead, starting on the moons, the full moon and the new moon, just to like know what to expect.
The weather report, the astro weather report.
Yes, the weather report. I love that, the weather report. So you can also find Andrea, of course, in here. And I am just so excited to talk to you all the time. This is just like hanging out like we always do anyway, but more publicly. So thank you so much, Andrea. That was incredibly insightful. If anyone has any questions about astrology or crystals or tarot, or what cards to use, what crystals to use for whatever you're dealing with, just put them in the group. And these are things we're going to be talking about regularly. So
yeah. Thank you, beautiful Hollis. I'm so honored to be here. And anyone who's watching this, I'm so honored that you've taken any time at all to be with us. Hollis, I'm sending you so much love, and I'm sending everyone out there so much love. And I could not be more delighted to be connected to each and every one of you.
Oh, well, I could not be more delighted to have you co-creating this beautiful magic in this group with you. So thank you, Andrea. And thank you to everyone who was on here. I will get better at the comments in real time. I didn't see any questions come up, so I'll just leave it at that. But thank you, everyone who is on here. I really appreciate your activity on the chat. And I love you all. We love you all.
We love you.
Bye.